Welcome back. Well, it's time to talk party politics. Members of the Joint National Assembly Conference Committee are set to meet on Monday to harmonize the different version of the Electoral Amendment Bill passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives. The panel, made up of lawmakers from both chambers, has been given a one-week deadline to resolve contentious issues, particularly provisions on the electronic transmission of election results, before forwarding it a unified version to President Bola Tinubu for assent. The move follows sharp disagreements over the use of technology in result collation and transmission after the Senate passed the Electoral Act 2022, Repeal and Amendment Bill 2026, approved all 155 clauses. Now, joining us for this conversation is Dr. Yusuf Harun, and also we have via Zoom, Election and Policy Development Specialist Paul James. Many thanks for joining us on the program, gentlemen, this morning. Let me start with Dr. Yusuf Harun. The Senate has upheld Section 60, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act at this time, affirming electronic transmission of polling unit results to INEC IRF portal, with retaining Form EC8A as a feedback where technology fails. Now, lawmakers insist to strike this balance between innovation and realism. So how do you react to this particular development coming out from the National Assembly? Dr. Yusuf, are you there?
Yes, very well. The news from the National Assembly is welcoming, and it was accompanied with mixed reactions from different people and citizens in Nigeria and abroad. But there's something I just want to say clearly. All over the world, even in the developed countries, in the Western parts in particular, where democracy has been existing for hundreds of years, there are always debates about election. Let's look, for example, in the United States of America. Even the current president, Donald Trump, is still alleging that there was misappropriation in his election with Joe Biden. There are always times when elections are not 100% perfect. But the good news is that the National Assembly has given INEC the independence and the autonomy to determine the mode of transmission. And they said that election can be transmitted electronically, and where it cannot be transmitted electronically, then the Form EC8 can be used. And this is a very good news, because Form EC8A has been the backbone of the manual transmission of election in Nigeria, even from the 1960s till date. So what I'm recommending and suggesting is that the INEC can go on with the electronic transmission, because everybody is about transparency. This is what everybody is concerned about: transparency of this election, accountability, and more of trust in this election. I'm also optimistic that if we look at 2023 election, which many people have mixed reactions, you can see a very close tie between the second and the third runner-up. That is Peter Obi, Atiku. Atiku was the second runner-up, Peter Obi was the third. And even the president, the current president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you can see if it was unlike the time Obasanjo was the president, or when he was even handing over to Yaradua, you could see the wide margin and the massive irregularities. I am optimistic that there is decorum and there is more of transparency coming into INEC. Have we gotten to where we want to get to? The answer is no. But are we making progress? Definitely yes. Those of us that know during the time of Operation Wettier, we knew our election was very, very radical, very violent. Unlike now, we can see that things are improving, and things will definitely improve. My prediction, again, as I always predict when I'm analyzing the politics in Nigeria, is that this 2027 election coming next year will be more transparent, more accountable, and I believe strongly that people will accept this result even better than 2023. I am not denying the fact that 2023 had some shortcomings, but I still believe 2023 election was relatively credible. And if we see the results in which they came out with, the close margin between the first, the second, and the third runner-up compared to previous elections, we see that we are moving forward. And I believe that this Form EC8A also is something which we can still have. Because if we are going to court, are we just going to take electronic transmissions there? We need documents also to present in the court, because definitely some people, no matter how transparent this election is coming in 2027, some political parties and some politicians will still drag INEC and the winners to court. And this is something which we should be prepared for.
Okay, great. Senator Thomas, can you confirm you're here with us? Okay, he's not here with us. Okay, so now my question, sir, to you will be with regards to the election notice period. So now this has actually been reduced from 360 days to 180 days. Now, what would you say? What's your reaction to this? Do you think some people, have reacted negatively, some positively, some people say it will affect the preparedness of candidates and, of course, probably eventually the outcome of the election. So what do you have to say to this?
Mr. James? That question, is it for Paul James?
Mr. James.
Oh.
Okay, who do we have? Mr. Yusuf,
Hello?
please, can you take that question?
Can you take the question, please? Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So the question is with regards to, Mr. Paul, are you with us?
I'm with you, yes.
Yes, please. So the question is with regards to the election notice period, which has been reduced from 360 days to 180 days. Now, people have reacted. We have several groups of people responding, saying, okay, this may affect the preparedness of candidates towards the election. Some people say it eventually may also go as far as affecting the outcome of the elections. Now, what do you have to say to the reduction of the notice period?
Well, the first person to ask it, has it been reduced? Because as it is, we are currently operating with the Electoral Act 2022. And based on the Electoral Act 2022, INEC is supposed to announce notice of election 360 days, which INEC rightly did as of yesterday when it issued out the notice of election. What is currently, the conversation at the moment is a review, the ongoing review of the Electoral Amendment by the National Assembly, where they had proposed 180 days. As far as I am concerned, that is self-serving, because according to some of the politicians or the members of the House of Assembly, they thought 180 days is too much for electoral preparation. 90 days was enough for them for their party primaries, party campaigns, and all of that. But it's beyond that. That was the reason behind INEC requesting for 360 days. This happened during the last amendment for the 2022 Electoral Act. And you agree with me that it was based on that amendment, whether we want to believe it or not, that for the first time in about 4 of our electoral cycles, there was no postponement of election. And then what does that mean? Because stakeholders had enough time. Based on that electorate, for instance, party primaries and all of that, 180 days before the election, which gives opportunity for litigants to go to the courts to be able to resolve whatever their differences before that. And let us not forget also, INEC requires it so it will have enough time also to print ballot papers. The National Assembly had argued that INEC doesn't need that much time. They already know the parties that will be contesting, since there are no pictures, just print and all of that. When we used to have those fewer number of days, INEC used to contract printing of outside of Nigeria. For the first time in 20, ballot papers were printed in country. Not just that, electoral stakeholders, security, observers, and all of that, every other stakeholder had ample time to prepare. So for me, it's not the argument of 180 days or whatever. If you see even from the announcement by the commission yesterday, INEC had continuously reminded Nigerians why it needed that time to plan. For instance, in the current plan, they anticipated that party primaries will have happened between May and June of this year. What does that mean? Whatever had happened, give parties the chance also to go to court, resolve whatever is their differences, and towards the end of the year, INEC will also have that opportunity to have the final list of candidates from the parties so it can prepare for the election. So as you see, it is still a proposal by the National Assembly. Let's not forget they had gone also to the conference where the Senate and the House of Assembly, the House are supposed to harmonize their proposal. So the call by stakeholders is to adopt the proposal of the House, which proposes the 360 days as against the 180 days. that the Senate is proposing.
All right, thank you very much. My question will go to Doctor. Members of the National Assembly Conference Committee are meeting on Monday to harmonize those issues that are under contention. What do you expect from them? And how do you think Nigerians will greet whatever document they finally come up with?
So part of the things that they are going to resolve or they are going to discuss is the notice of election by INEC. Are they going to modify it? Currently, under Section 31, the Electoral Act of 2022, the notice of election is 360 days.
Yeah.
Are they going to reduce it to 180 days? So these are part of the things they are going to review or they will discuss. Secondly, also, is the issue of IREV and BVAS, which are also used as tools to register voters and electronic transmission. Are they going to make it mandatory that any election that is not registered through the BVAS and IREV should be cancelled, and only the ones that are registered should be approved? Another thing, again, is the use of voter ID. There is debate in the National Assembly. Some people will be 18 exactly on that day. They may not have been opportune to register before that day. Another thing are the excess abuse of people based on falsification or forgery of birth certificates, especially. I'm not being tribalistic or looking at a region, but this is something which there has been countless evidence by independent observers in the northern part of Nigeria. We see some people who are obviously less than 18 years, who have not even reached the age or attained the age of puberty, and you see them on long queues casting their votes, bringing forged voter IDs of ages above 18. These are the things the National Assembly is going to review. We have to know how we are going to regulate this election, because election fraud is not only on the election day. These politicians are too desperate, and they will do anything to win election by even getting some people who are underage to vote, by manipulation, falsification. Even this from EC8A, there were allegations in 2023 that their server was hacked by the former chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. How can we prevent this kind of case where some people will not hack the server of INEC? How are we going to make sure that from EC8A is well protected? How are we going to reduce election violence? How are we going to reduce voter fraud? How are we also going to encourage Nigerians to come out to vote? Because some people are already losing interest in election. So we have the issue of voter apathy, where you conduct election and even more than 2/3 of the voters come out to vote. We saw this situation in 2023. Majority of Nigerians didn't come out to vote. A less numbers came out from the people who had the voter IDs and the people who came out to vote. They were far less. What about those who don't even show interest in getting the voter IDs? These are the problems I want them to discuss. How we can resolve this issue and how we can move forward so that we have a more transparent, accountable, free and fair election come 2027.
Let me quickly come to Mr. Paul James. Talking about this transparency, there are many issues on ground concerning transparency coming from INEC. A date has been fixed for the presidential election and also the National Assembly and the governorship and state assembly election. Well, these are issues that Nigerians are even raising. There are speculations at the moment that this may even clash with the Ramadan fasting of the Muslims. So are we expecting anytime soon for INEC to change the date? Then how transparent will INEC be under this dispensation to ensure we have free, credible and fair election come 2027?
Thank you very much for the question. So if you look at other elections, there are mostly dates that are fixed for elections. I think America is like November 20. DRC is December 20. So most countries have like a fixed date for their elections. For some of them, whether it is on a Sunday, on a Monday, or whatever, they go in and have those elections on those days. Now, I'm not saying Nigeria should be a different case, but then this is fixed at least on the second week of February every election year for the presidential And then for the governorship, we should have it on the first week of March in every election year. So this is something that had happened over the years. We had received also, I mean, there was also similar complaints, if you recall, in 2023. Now, that may also be the same complaint in the next round of elections. So these are some of these our religious occasions are like occasions that don't have necessarily a fixed period that actually always come around some of these other national assignments as well. But having said that, there was a statement that was released by the commission to say it was not oblivious of those realities and all of that. And I'm sure it's something that the commission will continue to look at. 360 days is still a lot ahead of us. There are other things to plan. You also have just asked about how transparent do we anticipate the commission to be. For me, there would be nothing much of to expect than for the commission to continue to be proactive in its engagement, not reactive. Because if you recall, some of the complaints or concerns from the 2023 is most times after events had happened, before the commission will come to start explaining its decision or why those events had happened. When you could actually prevent those or provide and manage expectations, even as you continue to engage through the events. The timeline is unambiguous. It is very clear. People now have known or will be anticipating what will happen. But beyond that is the implementation. As the commission goes into the daily implementation of the timeline, you want the commission to be providing updates to Nigeria about what it is doing. That had happened, if you also recall. I know Barrister Festus Okoye, the former National Commissioner for INEC Publicity, was very, very vocal in the last election, sharing updates with Nigeria. But sometimes those updates don't come when you expect or don't come in a manner that Nigerians will expect. That's why I say, for me, transparency requires knowing how to improving public communication, knowing also how to manage citizen expectation, especially with the realities of what INEC will be able to achieve. This is an election that may cost Nigerians close to ₦1 trillion. There will be a lot of expectations. When the last election happened, over 300 billion was voted. There was a lot of concerns around that. But again, we know this is not just for the 2023 election. It will also be for other elections that follow beyond the 2023. So you will expect those level of transparency from the commission to tell you what the overheads are and how many elections will these resources, for instance, cover. But now, since the focus is on the 2023, like I said, you will want maybe INEC does quarterly consultative meeting with stakeholders where it shares its plan and what it is doing. You also want that regular engagement with citizens through the different public engagement platforms that the commission has. And I hope that the commission will utilize that and will keep the public informed as to go through the election period.
Okay, so Dr. Yusuf, now my question is basically looking at this framework, looking at this amendment, and looking at the electoral framework of Nigeria generally. So now you did mention the situation of voters' apathy. So the truth of the issue, no matter what amendment is being done, if Nigerians do not believe it's for their best interest, they probably will not respond so positively to it. So now, what would you say the commission can do? Yes, I heard Mr. Paul speak on a number of points. Now, from your own point of view, what would you say the commission can do better to make sure that, despite the fact that these amendments are done to help the framework and all of that, that the voters literally have trust in the system and actually come out to vote during the next election?
There are three things which the system can be done to improve the massive turnout of voters and electorates. Number one is grassroots mobilization. This includes encouraging people and sensitizing people from the local government level, from houses. Another way is through social media, especially those who have very good influence, where they talk about the importance of election, the need for you to come out to vote, and how this election can improve and modify your life. Let's look back to the 1990s, during Hope 92 or Hope 93, during Abiola's time. There was a massive sensitization then. Even at that time, there was no internet. But we remember those times when we used to hear people campaigning or talking out, speaking. that they should come out to vote and determine their leader. At that time, it was the military era, and they were transforming to democracy. So now I suggest that INEC should also have sponsored ads encouraging people to come out to vote and let them know the importance of deciding their leaders in this country. If you don't decide who is going to rule you, then don't come out to complain when there is bad governance. So these are the things that have to be done. Acute and adequate sensitization of people to reduce voter apathy. Also, we have to build trust in the system. Let people know that they are the ones who determined those who are in the legislature. I was reading something a few days ago, and in that article, it stated clearly that many people are only focused on presidency. But it's not only the president that determines the government in a country. Your House of Reps also do a long thing. The House of Assembly, the senators, your local government chairman, even the worst is even the local government chairman. When I came out to vote for this election, that was in chairman election in Lagos State last year, there was massive voter apathy. Many political parties didn't even select, they didn't nominate any candidates. Many people didn't come out to vote. So people don't understand that election is not only the president. That's only what people know. People don't come out to vote for their governors. They don't come out to vote for their senators. They don't come out to vote for their House of Reps. They don't vote for House of Assembly members. They don't even vote for their chairman of local governments. They don't even know the names of their local government chairman. And they are not in the grassroots. So this is why adequate sensitization is necessary, both from the INEC, both from CSO, and also civil societies, influencers also, those who have massive followers on social media, 100,000 to millions of followers. We should always encourage people to come out to determine the future of their leader. There is something which was said in the US, and I always use US because that's our reference point. Even in the US, there were allegations of rigging, even by the current president. He alleged that their voting organization, voting body, rigged the election. That is his own opinion. Elon Musk also came out to question the authenticity of voting in the US. And he said even in the US, which is the most developed country in the world, they don't have voter ID. Imagine that. You can fact check this. USA does not even use voter ID. So there is need for reforms at every level. So Nigeria is also moving forward. We should increase the sensitization of people to come out to vote. It's very necessary.
All right.
People should know that they will determine their leaders, and every single vote counts. The vote of a senator is equal to the vote of a market woman. They all have one vote each to determine the future of our country.
All right, Mr. James, this one comes to you, and we have just 2 minutes for you to answer it. Talking about trusting the process. Some people are saying we're talking about IREV and the electoral laws being rejigged, but it's going to be rejigged by people that will stand for elections. How can there be a judge in their own case? That's what quite a number of people are saying. And what I want to ask is this enough to trigger the voter apathy that we are talking about?
No, of course, there are a lot of factors that will trigger the problem. It's the human elements around it, and that's what people are always talking about. It's the human that is going to use the technology, but what the technology also allows us to do is to reduce a lot of discretion and to minimize too much of the human interference in the process. That is why that is encouraged. A lot of things, like I said, will encourage apathy. One of it is also around the period of election, you see sometimes heightened security concerns. If you go back to the 2023, just before the election, there was a cash crunch. A state like Lagos, for instance, there was a festival that happened around the election that frightened some persons not to come out to vote. So there are a lot of conditions around it that we also have to be discussing along what constitutes this apathy. Sometimes even the sort of people, from the political parties, but that is also not enough excuse. For me, this is also the reason why people should need to begin to pay interest what happened in the political parties, especially with the candidate selection. It's going to happen based on the current timeline in June of this year, May, June of this year. And this is the primary election. It is what had happened from the primary election that is presented in the general election. When people don't pay attention to begin to speak to the party about the quality or the kind of individuals they want. It is not until we wait around the election before we begin to say this is an option of the devil or the WC, and then I would rather be a protest voter not to go out to vote. No, this is about something that concerns the generality of Nigerians, and I think the citizen needs to pay interest, especially to every aspect of the process. The political parties, there is so much, if we talk about people territorialize on issues around civic education, voter education, but who has a mass following in the country? Political parties. I agree that we would not necessarily have to domicile this to any stakeholder, INEC or anybody, but this should be an affair that will concern every Nigerian. Are we aware of when election will happen? Yes. Do we know what we are supposed to do? One of them is to go register to vote. Voter registration is ongoing, and I hope that Nigeria will make the most of the opportunity, because this is the first step in engaging the process. To participate in the process is to register to vote. After that, they can then begin to locate where will their polling units be and prepare ahead of the elections.
Sensitization is key in all of this development. Let me quickly get your reaction, Dr. Yusuf Arun, on this particular development, still on transparency of election, especially in Nigeria. The former governor of Kaduna State, Nasiru El-Rufai, yesterday alleged that someone tapped into the telephone conversation of the National Security Advisor. Looking at this development, how can we have a transparent election devoid of being hacked? Because a lot of people are saying if politicians are beginning to monitor their telephone conversation, and we're still talking about electronic transmission of results, where do we go from here that will have a transmission devoid of being hacked by some people in the country?
There are two sides to your question. Firstly, I'm going to address Nasiru El-Rufai, the former governor of Kaduna State and the former minister of the FCT. I believe Nasiru politically is aggrieved, and everything that is seen is just like a woman who maybe went through a divorce, and she now starts complaining bitterly. So that angle is separate. Nasiru El-Rufai, my own advice politically as an analyst, I believe he should have been patient in APC. That is it, because I believe any way you look at it, he's going to lose. Let's look at Ashwaju as an example. There was a time in the presidency of Muhammad Buhari, Ashwaju was sidelined. Some people wanted to sideline him. He was not holding any political office during Buhari, but he was patient in APC. He restructured his base, and he won the APC primaries and went ahead to win the presidential election. I believe Nasiru El-Rufai is still young enough to go on and get a good agenda, but he knows why he left the party. So that is aside. I suggest that he should have been patient in APC, even if he didn't get the ministerial position. He should have been patient, realign his base, play the politics well. Now, about the second question, hacking is something which INEC has to make sure that it's avoidable. I said it also when I was discussing why people lose trust in elections and why there are reasons for voter apathy. These are part of the reasons. Every citizen in Nigeria's vote has to count. Majority of Nigerians believe that after all, my vote will not count. If I just go out to vote, it will not determine who will win, will win. That's their mindset. But let's not look at it in that way. Let us believe that our vote is going to make a change. Now, INEC need to restructure their system. Okay, look at the banking system in Nigeria. Banking system in Nigeria is very effective. So we should look at INEC also have to provide security into their system.
Dr. Yusuf,
employ people with IT.
It's a fine place to leave it. We'll continue this particular conversation. Thank you very much for joining us on TVC Breakfast Saturday. Public Affairs Analyst, Dr. Yusuf Arun, and Election and Policy Development Specialist, Paul James. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on TVC Breakfast Saturday.
Thank you.
My sister, don't
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a break at the moment. And when we come back from the break, it's time to talk